Hello everybody, welcome to AllStar Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. I am trying to hit 100k subscribers on the channel by the end of the playoffs, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Also drop a like, it only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Let's get into these hot takes. The Nuggets are winning the championship if Jamal Murray comes back and Michael Porter Jr. is 50% of himself, from my guy Mojo99. Well, I don't know why this tweet suggests that Jamal is just obviously going to be 100% himself and MPJ, well, that's up in the air. It's up in the air for the both of them. Honestly, if they were healthy this entire year and they had built up their chemistry this entire year, I'd say their chance was as good as any's. Like on the same tier as like the Suns or the Warriors. However, given that they will have a few games of the regular season tops to put that chemistry together, and we still don't know for sure, like there's so many games left and like we only have 3 weeks to determine if anybody's coming back. Like the timetable is too small that I don't feel like the chemistry would be there if they do come back. So I'm going to say no to that, even though I did recently do a video that extremely underperformed. But the Nuggets are not out of the contender conversation because of the possibility of those two coming back, but I'm definitely not saying they're definitely the favorite with them coming back or anything like that. Dirk is the greatest mid-range shooter of all time. I'm going to make a video about the greatest mid-range shooters of all time, and like it's more than just simply like breaking down percentage, because there's volume, there's difficulty of attempt, and all that kind of stuff. So that's an interesting conversation in a video that's going to be probably pretty long and a bunch of numbers. But ever since mid-range percentage has been tracked, Dirk, I believe, all-time rules like all of the spots from mid-range. Like all of them in terms of percentage, and his volume was obviously very high. So that's very, he definitely very much has a case. Thing is though, Michael Jordan, his shooting numbers when they were recorded were insane, and it suggested that his shooting numbers were basically the same for like a decade. So he could very easily have a case too, numbers wise, if it was just something that was tracked before 1996. So I don't know, that one's it's something that's never going to be definitive, I don't think. When counting pure skill and taking accolades away, Jokic is already proving to be a top 10 talent of all time. Yeah, the other day people were debating about like if Kyrie is the most skilled player of all time, and when people were bringing up names, I was shocked to see how little Jokic has come up. Jokic is absolutely, well, I don't know, I don't want to say absolutely, maybe absolutely a top 10 most talented player of all time. Like, how many players are like one of the best post scorers ever, one of the best mid-range shooters statistically, some of the best touch. He's a decent enough three-point shooter. He's a really good finisher outside of just the post. He's a good defender now, and then he is in the conversation for best passer ever. So yeah, top 10 talent, I think that's fair to say. If everything goes right, Robert Williams could become a legitimate all-star next season. The thing about Robert is, as good as he is, I don't know that his numbers are going to be quite good enough for him to really be in that conversation unless Boston starts utilizing him more offensively, which I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if they did. If he got to like 4.5 assists per game from the 2 that he averages right now, because he has a whole lot of playmaking upside. If he got to like 15 points rather than 10, sure. But it's going to require Boston to give him a little bit more opportunity on that end of the floor. Defensively, he's already got his case locked to be an all-star caliber player. But for his numbers have to rise a little bit before I say he's definitely an all-star next year. By the time his career is over, Steph will have a serious case for top 5 all-time. There's already a discussion on whether or not he is the GOAT point guard, and Magic is almost unanimously considered top 5. If he were to pass Magic, that would put him in the conversation. I have Magic 3rd all-time, but I will say, as someone who has Magic that high, it is not unanimous that he is top 5. There are a lot of people who actually just are seriously in a Magic Johnson is overrated camp. And I will say Magic feels like one of those players who is just slotted in that spot without much thought. I think when you actually delve into the player he was, his case gets better, but it also feels like people just put him there by default. Like there's not much thought put into it. It's kind of like with Tim Duncan, when people go, oh yeah, Tim Duncan's top 10, and they throw him in there, but they don't really pay him the time and the energy that they do to other players for some reason. Don't know if I explained that adequately. I don't mean anything really negative there. It's just in terms of how we rank players. It just seems like it's like, oh yeah, that guy, and they move along, and it's like, why is he not more controversial when it's, I don't know. I'm rambling. But Magic Johnson, I wouldn't say he's unanimously top 5. That said, I do think it's possible Steph passes Magic as the point guard. The thing is, if we're looking at this as pure talent, I do believe Magic and Steph are basically right there. But Magic has more accolades for sure, and that's kind of the difference maker there. In terms of actually catching up to him accolade-wise, I don't know that Steph is going to be able to do that, because I don't know how many MVPs does Magic have. It's a lot. I think it's at least 4, right? I'm blanking on how many MVPs he actually has. But he has a lot of MVPs, and then he obviously has more championships. He has 5 of those. He has more Finals MVPs because we know. So the accolade thing, I know that he can catch up to that. And to me, I think they're pretty much equal talents. So I'm probably always going to have Magic higher all time than Steph, even though Steph is my second favorite player of all time. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Let's just put it that way. It's going to piss me off not knowing how many MVPs Magic has, so I'm going to Google it real quick. No, it's 3 times. Okay, so he has 1 more MVP than Steph. Yeah, thought it was 3 or 4. Close enough. Anyways, moving on. The Cavs have the brightest future in the league. 2 superstars in Mobley and Garland, 2 all-star, borderline all-stars in Sexton and Allen, other great young talents like Lowry and Okoro, and they're getting experience on how to win now. First of all, Lowry is 24 going on 25 and has not significantly improved at one aspect of basketball in his entire career, so I don't love how this is posed as though Lauri Markkanen is some player that's going to get better. He's not. Lauri Markkanen is Lauri Markkanen. Outside of that, though, I do agree with pretty much everything in this take. I don't know that Garland is quite going to reach superstar caliber tier, though I do think he's someone who could be on the borders of it. I think he could be in a Kyrie Irving tier where it's like he's an offensive superstar, but his defense is enough of a not great thing that he kind of isn't the same value, and it's just like, yeah, that guy's a number 2, not a number 1, and I consider you a superstar if you're a number 1, not necessarily as a scoring option, but just like clearly the best player on a championship team. I do believe Evan Mobley can be that, because I realize it's going to piss people off, but like as far as I'm concerned, Evan Mobley has like Tim Duncan potential. Obviously, that's just potential, and plenty of people have potential and never live up to it, so we'll have to wait and see. But I genuinely think Evan Mobley can be as good as anybody. So I do agree with him being a future superstar. Garland, probably more borderline. Sexton, I do not believe is an all-star caliber player. I believe he's going to be a six-man type guy for his entire career. And Jarrett Allen is already an all-star, and I do think will continue to be on that tier, but probably somebody who's in and out of all-star games depending on circumstances, because he's probably more fringe. That said, Isaac Okoro is also going to probably be an all-defensive caliber wing, and his three-point shooting has been really good to close the year. Yeah, their young talent's crazy good, and they're already winning now. The only other bright future that would compete is the Grizzlies, and I guess maybe you could argue the Pelicans if we have some modicum of what the fuck is going on with Zion. But the Cavs ultimately are in a great position and really love all of everything about that team, other than Lauri Markkanen, because I'm his biggest hater after being his biggest fan. Coach K, unlike most college to NBA coaches, would be fantastic in the NBA. Not sure if this is a hot take, but what the heck, smiley face. First of all, Noah, the ending of that tweet was adorable. But I'm going to have to be mean now because this take is bad. Everything that I have ever heard or learned about Coach K suggests that he has a monumental ego. He loves yelling at his players. And unfortunately, that's one of the biggest reasons why college coaches don't work in the NBA. This is a whole thing that I delved into in my Greg Popovich video. there's a fundamental difference culturally between college basketball and the NBA in terms of how coaches are treated and valued. In college, coaches are treated as like the messiah, and what they say goes, and everything is based entirely around the head coach. Zion cannot say a bad thing to Coach K in college, but Zion can get his head coach fired in the NBA, no problem. It's just a different power dynamic. The power dynamic is in favor of the coach in college. It is not in the NBA. And a lot of the problems that college coaches have going into the NBA is they don't understand that difference in power dynamic, and they fuck themselves over. So I don't think Coach K would survive in the NBA because he's not going to adjust the way that he talks and treats players because he doesn't have the power dynamic in his favor anymore, and pretty much the entire fucking team would revolt. At least that's what I think would happen. Even if he is a good basketball mind, in terms of how managing players goes, not so sure about that. And if you want to use the fucking Team USA argument, I don't agree with that. I really don't think that the coaching is that big of a factor in that to begin with, because it's basically a fucking all-star team. And then second of all, I don't know, it's just different. It's just a different dynamic for that than it would be in the NBA. Different expectations, different level of talent. Obviously, he's not managing that level of talent all the time. I just don't see it. I don't know that that's the worst argument in the world, but I don't agree. That said, I don't know enough about Coach K to feel definitively about this, but that's the perception that I get at the very least. I get like a Jim Boylan vibe from him. Not saying he's as dumb as Jim Boylan, but he does have a similar attitude from what I have seen. And it was that attitude that was just as detrimental as the fact that he was a fucking idiot in the case of Jim Boylan. Hopefully it doesn't piss people off too much because I live like 30 minutes from Duke University, so someone could come and kill me for that. With him being so bad offensively, Bill Russell would not be a starting center in today's NBA. That's just a fucking stupid take. I don't even know what to tell you about that. A generational defensive player starts regardless of if they average 0 points per game. No. Not to mention Bill Russell was like a phenomenal passer, and he could finish around the rim. The problem was when he created his own offense. But a big man that can literally only finish opportunities that are assisted to him, like DeAndre Jordan was an all-star center that way. You don't think DeAndre Jordan plus amazing passing, plus way more defensive versatility, plus way better rebounding and shot blocking equals all-star player, let alone fucking starter? That's ridiculous. I don't think you've done enough research on the type of player that Bill Russell was. Do not get this confused based on what his competition in his era was. Bill Russell is an all-time great athlete, first and foremost, and he was not unskilled on defense and in terms of his passing ability. That's a ridiculous take. JaVale McGee is having one of, if not the best backup 5 seasons ever. You probably got to give Serge Ibaka in 2019 and Bill Walton in 1984 or whatever year it was that he was the 6th man on the Celtics. Got to give it to those two before him. But after that, you could make a point. JaVale McGee has been amazing for the Phoenix Suns this year, and that's been an under-sold, under-talked about thing because, I mean, why would you talk about a backup center all that much? But I've tweeted a couple of times about it, like, yeah, JaVale McGee is fucking awesome. La GM will transform the Lakers this offseason, and they will be back next year. Yes, because that has historically gone so well.